Hi all, welcome to A Coach's Handbook. As always, I'm Coach Matt. This week, I wanted to take a moment to preface the next two episodes of A Coach's Handbook, which is a two-part episode with Coach Jodi. I know that most of my listeners, like myself, are male coaches. Although this interview was a blast to do, as Coach Jodi had tons of fun stories, I bring this up as she also had many experiences as a female coach over her 30-year professional career as a softball coach that may make some uncomfortable. Before I did the interview, I asked her to be honest and upfront with these experiences, as it really shows how we still live in a society where many treat others differently based on their gender and more. Women make up barely 20% of the coaches in the United States. That doesn't mean they're any less of a coach. Having a strong athletic daughter, I wanted to bring light to the subject in order to pave the way for any opportunity she wants without having to go through ignorant obstacles that women like Coach Jodi has had, which all could have been avoided if people would just be more accepting. I challenge you to not focus on some of the generalities that Coach Jodi mentions and instead listen to her stories just to get her perspective and see that we may not always see the same thing. Hopefully, this will motivate some to step up when coaches, refs, or players are being treated with disrespect. And now, A Coach's Handbook.
This the best time, why you wanna be an outcast? Numbers don't lie, you gain a lot from this math class. It takes time to be great, you can learn the lesson. Blood, sweat, and tears, heartbeat of a champion. Big or small, your heart is the biggest weapon. So follow before you lead and water and plant your seeds. When it's all said and done, you be the best they ever seen. So listen to my catalog on this coach's blog.
This week is about Coach Jodi's playing career. Welcome back to our next episode of A Coach's Handbook. Today's guest has 30 years of college coaching experience, along with so many things on her resume that I'm just going to leave it for the interview. Coach Jodi Hall-Curnutte, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. And I know I just asked you how to pronounce your last name and I missed it. How do I say your last name again?
Hall-Curnutte.
Curnutte. I apologize about that.
It's okay. It's been a long time. Nobody ever gets it right.
Mine's just too easy. So thank you for being on the show. I've been wanting you on here for quite some time. We've been talking for a couple weeks now. And as my microphone drops down, hopefully you can still hear me.
I can.
You have a huge career. So long, it's amazing. I was going through your resume and everything, and then going back even to your youth. So we have a lot to talk about today. But the first thing that I always like to start off with, especially, with sports, it all starts in the beginning, right? It doesn't just happen when you're, 40, 50 years old. It's when you're young. So before we start, when you were young, what did sports mean to your family?
Oh, wow. So sports meant a lot. I grew up with my dad playing police softball, following him all over the country, playing police softball.
Police, like as in police, like police force.
Yes, he was an FOP. He played in FOP league. So he traveled around, and I guess the country for me back then being little was the state of Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. That's what I referred to as a country. But
is there more? Ohio's so big.
pretty much. But he played FOP softball. So he played policeman softball. And he traveled, and we followed him around. But sports was slow pitch softball and shooting. So that's what we considered sports back then. And that's what we did. We spent our weekends either at the softball tournaments watching him or watching him shoot. So that's what we did growing up. And then I grew up playing baseball. They didn't have softball back then. I wanted to play baseball because the boys that I grew up with in the neighborhood played baseball. So, and I wanted to play with them. So, when we weren't outside playing till darkness, we were at the ballpark playing in our, I joined Little League and played Little League with the boys because they did not have softball.
Excellent. So did you traveled all around watching your dad play, and that's where your interest sparked. Before we get into the baseball and softball that really triggered your career, did you ever play or want to play any other sports?
Well, so growing up, again, there wasn't a whole lot of available for girls to play at all back then. I was a 70s, 80s, early 80s kid. So there wasn't a whole lot available for girls to be playing. I mean, and I grew up poor. So, baseball was really about it. I played Sparky League and then went into Little League, which they did not want the girls playing Little League at all. It was me and another girl that played Little League. And every day they were coming to our games, to our practices, begging us not to play because heaven forbid you let girls play Little League, and which we shouldn't have been playing. And, every day they're asking my dad, why are you letting her play? You shouldn't let her play. And my dad's like, why can't she play? Every game I would get hit because you can't let a girl get a hit off of you. We only got to play the bare minimum, which was 2 innings. And I was
Wait, I apologize to interrupt you, but you said you got hit, not a hit. You got hit. You were based, weren't you?
Yes. Every game I'd come up to bat and be hit with the first pitch. You were not going to let the girl get a hit off of you if you were a boy pitcher, and they were all boy pitchers, obviously. So yeah, I got to play 2 innings. So I maybe got to bat once in a game, batted last every game, and then got hit. I stepped in the batter's box and I got hit by a pitch every game. The only person that let me bat was actually a boy with the same last name as mine. His name is Hall-Curnutte. He was the best pitcher in the league, projected actually at that age to go into the major leagues because he was a phenomenal pitcher. He came from, had 2 brothers that were both very phenomenal pitchers, not related, by the way. And he was the only one that pitched to me, but that's because he struck everybody out and he knew he didn't have to worry about a girl getting a hit from him. But yeah, we, and again, every game I played, every practice I went to, they were there begging my dad and my mom not to let me play and get me to quit. And when it was time for me to move up to Pony League, it was, okay, well, there she is. She's not going to quit. She's not going anywhere. So let's start softball. So they started a softball league, and it was quite disappointing to start a softball league where, I went from having a really snazzy, awesome uniform where, Little League, I got pants and stirrup socks and a nice shirt and a hat. And then I go to softball and they hand me a pink visor and a t-shirt. That's all I got. And, we went from playing, great fast pitch, overhand throwing baseball to underhand slow pitch softball. So we weren't allowed to go to Pony League. We weren't allowed to play with the boys anymore because they figured, well, we gave them an equivalent and let them play slow pitch softball. We only had 2 teams, where in Little League and Pony League, they had 6 to 8 teams. So we played the same slow pitch team because there was like 2 girls slow pitch teams in the league. We played them, same team every week, twice a week. And again, I got a visor that was pink and a t-shirt that was pink instead of the cool uniform that they gave the baseball teams. So it was quite boring, very much a disappointment. But again, and then I was in junior high at that point in time when they started Pony League. But at least going into junior high, there was more opportunity. That's when I got to start playing volleyball. So a little bit more opportunity to play other sports through the junior high program, which now we refer to as middle school, I guess, in today's day and age. But I got to broaden my horizons a little bit more in athletics. But I was playing slow pitch softball instead of fast pitch because we did not have the fast pitch leagues that they do now or the travel ball. And I also got to play run track and field through the middle school / junior high programs. So it was a little bit more opportunity for girls sports at that point in time. And I got to try out for basketball, but I did get cut from the basketball program as one of the tallest girls in high school or in the middle school, but I did get cut from basketball. But I did get to play, volleyball, run track, and then continue my slow pitch career until I went to high school.
You literally lived a league of their own for Little League, almost, the movie A League of Their Own, where they're given the skirts and the, because wow, and we're talking the late 70s, early 80s, like that's crazy. What, as a player, I mean, I know you saw your parents having these arguments with these,
Yes.
kids, and some of these boys on the teams were your friends, right?
Yes.
So, what was going through your mind?
Well, the boys were extremely accepting of me playing. I hung right with them. The boys didn't mind me playing. The boys didn't have any problems with me playing. Their parents did. Their parents had a lot of issues with me and the other girl in the league playing. They were worried about us getting hurt. Girls shouldn't play. A lot of people, believe it or not, didn't mess with me a whole lot because my dad was a police officer. So most people were more scared of my dad than anything else, which was kind of funny. But the league commissioner coming out, the guy who ran the Parks and Rec coming out and trying to get my parents to convince them to make me quit was kind of ridiculous. There was an umpire, Bob Delaney, who umpired most of the games, and he was amazing because he would, come on, Jodi, you just stay with us. You keep playing. You persevere through this. And he was amazing because he just kept saying, don't you quit. Don't you quit. You're going to do great things. And I attribute a lot of, he was really big in helping me make sure I was never going to quit and not let any of this stuff bother me. And I will always give him credit to helping develop me, and he never attributed my softball skills or my skills as a player, but it was nice to know that umpire that, was everybody, he was a great umpire. Nobody liked him because he was a great umpire, but, but he was always there in support, where there's the other umpire that, it was as soon as I would get hit, get up, no crying, I was getting bombed by balls.
There's no crying in baseball.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a league of their own. What are you doing?
Right. I was getting bombed by them every at bat. In the arm, in the head and leg. I was just getting pummeled by balls every at bat. So it is what it is. And it made me stronger. I never got to hit. So nobody got to see what I could do as a hitter, but it's interesting now, the people that were always like, oh, I just remember you were such a good player. And, all that baseball, it just made you the softball player that you were. And I'm like, no, it didn't.
I was there.
I didn't get to do anything. I played right field. I had to play 2 innings.
Well, I like that you went right into, someone that was a big influence on you. That's always a big question that I have. And, it's nice to know that, kids are kids, right? For the most part, they don't care. They're there to play. They don't care whether you're, male, female, whatever. That's just, they're there to play. It's usually the parents, and it's usually the parents' influence that, and this is today too. It's usually the parents' influence that makes the kids do it or not do it, or be that way or not be that way. So it's good to hear that the kids were there and that you actually did have someone other than your parents to kind of push you during that time, because then we step up into softball. And did you start playing, did they have fast pitch in high school?
Yeah. Oh, of course. We had an amazing fast pitch program in softball, and it's amazing how many people, there's so many influences in my career. So many. Obviously my parents, and then, I throughout my entire career, I had a bus driver, and his daughter happened to be the best pitcher on the softball team, the high school softball team. And you only read about her, heard about her, how phenomenal she was this and that. And I can remember reading about her going, I want to be better than her. And, did not realize at the time that it was a fast pitch softball team, because I only knew that slow pitch at that time, and so, but I kept thinking I want to be like Jolene Broadstone, or Joellen Broadstone. And because my bus driver's daughter, and then I was a Girl Scout. Went to Girl Scout camp, and is a sports camp I was selected to. And one of like 300 people applied for it. I was one of 300 people chosen out of my area to go.
Wow.
And it was really neat sports camp. And then we were playing softball, and some girl says, well, I'm a fast pitch pitcher. And I'm like, well, I can do that. I started pitching. And I've never pitched ever in my life, fast pitch. And she goes, well, I bet I can strike you out. And I'm like, well, I bet you can't. And I ended up hitting a ball like 250 feet over everybody's head, and had never hit a fast pitch except for baseball, in practices. And she fast pitched the ball into me, and I drilled it. I mean, I hit it really, really far into this field. And I kept going, oh, this is fun. I wonder if we do this in high school. I had no idea. And this is going into my freshman year of high school. So then is when I decided, oh, I hope we play fast pitch in high school. I did not know, well, come to find out it was fast pitch. And that's what Joellen had been pitching. And so the high school coach obviously was also our gym teacher in middle school and elementary, and was also the volleyball coach. So I'm playing volleyball, and she sets me up with a pitching coach who happens to be an African-American who had pitched in the Negro manufacturing leagues.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And his stories were always so interesting because he wasn't allowed to play in the white manufacturing leagues. He had, and when he was brought in to pitch for a white manufacturing team, he was hit with the very first pitch of the game, and it broke his orbital around his eye. And then he was out for almost an entire year, and he had glass eye put in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because he was Black, and it didn't stop him. And the year after he came back, then it was accepted that he got to play. They were intermixing and playing. And so it's interesting to hear when I got to hear his stories about how he got to play then, and they got to, intermix and play. And he was a phenomenal pitcher, but he became my pitching coach. And he worked with the high school girls, and and I always felt like Bob was 90 years old when he was working with me, but he wasn't. And he was the local roller skating rink guard or whatever. He was the person out there regulating the kids during. So but he was our pitching coach. He was the pitching coach for me. He was pitching coach for the high school people, and just an amazing guy. I pitched every Sunday at 4 p.m. out the local, city park or whatever. And, rain, snow, no matter what was happening, 4 p.m. I was at the city park on Sunday pitching. And when I say rain, snow, whatever, and he was always late. Always, and it was funny because I'm like, do the clocks in your house ever work? And he's like, just go, and when I got too fast to where he couldn't catch me anymore, my dad had to catch me. And then my brother had to catch me, or then I had to find somebody to catch me. But it was literally pouring down rain, and I'd call and like, are we pitching today? Oh yeah, you need to learn how to pitch in the rain. Bob, there's 12 inches of snow on the ground. It's okay. Your dad got it taken care of. My dad was literally plowing off with a snow plow.
Oh my gosh.
A path for me to pitch. You need to know how to pitch in this too. Let's go. But he would be late. My pitching coach was always late. But I take after him a little bit in that regard. I'm not going to lie. But it was, and I would, for 3 straight years at Christmas, I got him a clock for Christmas. Because he never let us pay him. He always did it out of the kindness of his heart. And he wouldn't take money. He would never take money. He took brownies on occasion or cookies on occasion, but he would not take money. He would never. If I put money in a card, the money always found its way back into my car somehow.
Wow.
But it was but his stories were just incredible to hear about how they never let him pitch. with the white leagues and the manufacturing companies. And, but, again, how to listen to the people who transformed me as a player and then later in coaching is just amazing. To get where I was and to get where I am, it's just been incredible. And now I find myself telling those same stories.
Well, what? Yeah,
I'm old to now.
you're allowed to. You've earned it.
Thanks.
So you had a lot of support in some very strong ways. I guess a little support in a lot of strong ways. I guess that's a better way of saying it. What, going back to the younger ages, was it that support that kept you going, or was there an internal drive too?
Oh, I had the support, obviously, always there, but I had an internal drive that a lot of people just don't have. I had goals and I had ambition, but internal drive was there more than anything else. I knew from the time that I was a freshman in high school that one, I wanted to be the best player to ever come out of my high school. I mean, that was my goal. I also knew that I wanted to play Division I softball. I set goal, and the more people told me that I couldn't do it, the more I wanted to do it. I wanted to prove people wrong. Just like when people kept saying, and I'll go back to the baseball, you can't do this. Well, I'm going to do it. Watch me do it. And the more people that came and kept telling my parents not to let me play, because I saw that. I understood that was happening. I was still going to do it. My parents were, telling them that they weren't going to let me quit and they weren't going to stop it. And I wanted to support that. And I just had an internal drive where determination, I guess you could call it. I wanted to achieve things and I was going to do it. Nothing was going to stop me. It wasn't, I got made fun of. What, you got pitching practice Sunday? What do you mean you can't go skiing? What do you mean you can't go to the movies? What do you mean you can't go do this? You're going to go hit, you're going to practice pitching. It was, why do you have to do that? I found ways to do things. I still, hung out with my friends. I still did, the typical things teenagers do. Lifting with football players, I asked if we could get into the weight room when other people weren't getting into the weight room, and did the things that you're supposed to be doing in the off season that most people don't do. And it was just internal. A lot of it was internal, and most of it was to prove so many people wrong. Because I wanted to do it, and people kept going, you're never going to be able to do that. You can't play D1. You're not good enough. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And I'm going to prove you wrong. But the support that was there, also the people that I needed to tell me that I could do it, they were there telling me I could do it. So I had that support.
Well, let me ask you this. Yeah, the drive is there. I understand the will and the want. Did you have fun doing it?
Oh, I had a blast.
Did you? Yeah.
There wasn't, I can honestly tell you, not one time did somebody make me do something I didn't want to do. My high school coach was hard. She was very hard. And she should have been, and there were lots of things that she made me do that I didn't want to do. And should have, that's what coaches are supposed to do. But the other stuff I did because I wanted to do. And I had a blast doing it. And I still do softball to this day in some form. I would love to still be playing. I wish I could still be as competitive playing softball as I used to be. That's a part I do miss so much. But I've never woken up and not wanted or done something in softball and not liked it or had fun doing it. I still have that fire every single day. So yes, I had fun doing it every single day. You wake up there some days and you're like, oh God, but I did it and still had fun doing it. It's been a part of my life. I'm 52 years old, and every day, every single day. And even when I was training, when I was in high school, I loved it. College, loved it. After college, love it. I could play every day. I mean, there were summers I was playing slow pitch 108, 130 games a summer.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how much I love it. A little on the crazy side, but yeah.
Well, we'll leave the craziness aside. But you did bring up college, and you played at an extremely high level in college. Like, you won some awards and, made it pretty far. And you had that drive in high school. You want to play in college. You want to be the best in college. What were some of your fears, though, going into college, senior year of high school, and getting ready to graduate and going into high school? What were some of your fears going into that college level?
Well, when you go into college, you always fear the unknown of, like, are you still going to love it? Are you still going to, is the fire still going to be there when you do get to college? How are your priorities going to change when you go to college? Mm-hmm. As life takes its turns and goes, and, as it changes. And I was worried about that. I mean, you also worry about what your value is going to be as a player when you go to college. And are the coaches going to see your value as a player the way you see it? And are you going to be able to adapt to what they see your value as? I
want to stop you right there. And I apologize, but you brought up a really good point.
Okay.
Your idea of your self-value versus what the coaches value at. And I think a lot of players miss that. And
yes.
a lot of people. So I love that you brought that up, as knowing that ahead of time. I had to emphasize that a little bit because I think that's a great point to bring up. I apologize. Keep going.
Oh, no. And I learned that through the recruiting process, actually, a lot, because when I was being recruited, and I always use the example. So I was recruited by Ohio State. I mean, I looked at Ohio State. I realized early I did not like the Ohio State coach at all that was recruiting me. And only because she did not mesh well with me personality wise. Sure. I did not like her, I guess you call it her roughness or rudeness, but bluntness maybe. I just didn't like it. She did not want me even a little bit as a pitcher, which is fine. At least I appreciated her honesty. She wanted me as a first baseman and hitter, and basically told me I would never pitch for them. Okay. And at least, again, I appreciate her honesty. I had worked so hard to be a pitcher. Mm-hmm. And, and everybody else would look at that and go, oh, but you could have been a Buckeye. You could have gone to Ohio State. You could have been a Buckeye. And you could have gone as a first baseman and hitter. You really turned down the chance to be a Buckeye to not be a pitcher. And I looked at it as, I worked really hard to be a pitcher. And I chose the University of Dayton because, I wanted to be a pitcher. I didn't want to be just a hitter and a first baseman. And I wanted to be a pitcher. And there were other options on the table. I was actually supposed to sign at Wright State to go there as a pitcher, hitter, and first baseman. And the coach didn't sign up or show up for my meeting to sign. Just didn't show up. And I ended up going to Dayton and falling in love with the school. Nice. And I took a huge risk to go to Dayton, not knowing what the ending was going to be, but I chose the school because I absolutely love the school and the academics there. And the coach ended up getting fired the day before I showed up for my meeting.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I took a huge risk going there, not knowing what the coach was going to be or who the coach was going to be at that point in time. And turning down pretty much a full ride at Wright State, knowing what that was going to be just because the coach didn't show up for the meeting. But I did not like the way the school looked at the time. And it just didn't fit in my scope of academics. But when I met with the Ohio State coach, like I said, I did not want to not be a pitcher.
Sure.
And so it did not fit in what I thought, but she was telling me that I wasn't going to pitch. So at Dayton, at least I knew I had the opportunity to at least prove I could be a pitcher. But you still look at, does it fit what they see from me or not, but at least I had the opportunity to prove to them I could be a pitcher. She was telling me I had no opportunity at all. But when you look at from the coaching aspect, you have to be able to fit their mold, but I at least had the opportunity to prove to them that I could be a pitcher. And I at least went in and did, so as a player going in, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to know that. And I figured at that point in time, it had what I needed academically. And no matter what was going to happen, I knew I was going to stay there because it was the school for me, 100%.
Well, I think you brought back the love, right? We just talked about whether or not you loved. Well, you took it, and I'm not going to say this was the lesser of two. I mean, this was actually the greater of two for you.
Yeah.
What was the better fit? But you took a risk because of the love of the game more than what someone else was telling you. And I commend you for that. I think that was a big risk. So many great points there. You brought up academics. I just before we go into the next segment, I have one more question of you about your youth, but before we go into the next segment, what was your major in college?
Oh, so I started off pre-med.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I started off pre-med, wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. That was my dream. Obviously did not make it there. But no, I started off pre-med and I looked at a lot of schools to go pre-med. And then after my first semester, freshman year, realized that might not be the academic track I wanted to stay on for several reasons. But then after, which we might not want to go to on tape.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun my freshman year of college. But after, and I realized, again, that's the priority of what happens when you go off to college. And then the good thing is I realized it after my freshman year and then straightened up a lot of things. And after that, I decided I changed into exercise science.
Nice.
Realized that, again, it's the ebb and flow of college anyways. You're there to find yourself. You're there to discover who you are and what you want to become when you go to college. Went into exercise science with the track of going into athletic training. Loved my course of study, loved it. Got to my senior year of college, decided that I was not going to spend my time in a training room and make what they do and work all those hours. Decided to, within my major, go more into cardiac rehab, like the hospital track type stuff. And then, because in exercise science, there's a million things that you can do within that realm, in exercise physiology, that type of thing. Well, and again, still all within the major and with not having to take extra classes, everything's still right there. Got to the end of my senior year, and I'm everything but certified in athletic training, but got to the end of my senior year and my coach were coming home from conference tournament. I had gotten injured right at like career-ending injury right before my senior tournament, before our conference tournament. And we're coming home from the conference tournament and my coach hands me a NCAA news. This is, of course, before cell phones. There's no cell phones. This is 1991. And she hands me an NCAA news, and which is in paper form. It's an actual newspaper. And she says, you need to be a coach. There's a job opening in your hometown. And I went, what? And she goes, you have coached this team for 4 years. I don't understand why you need to look into coaching. I don't know what your career goal is and what you're doing after graduation, but you need to be a coach. And there is a job opening in your hometown and you need to look into it. And she had it circled and it said Jodi on it. And I went, okay. And it was head coaching position for volleyball and softball at Urbana University. And she knew I was actually going to play volleyball and softball at Dayton when I entered as my freshman year, and decided not to play volleyball. I was supposed to play both there actually. And I was like, okay. And she goes, no, you need to look into this job and you need to become a coach.
Well, you are a segue.
Yeah.
You are a big segue. I need to stop you right before, because you just totally opened up the next segment, which I think is wonderful. But I have one more question to you about college. I can't list all the accolades you had in college. We could, but the interviews are going to be super long, and I love it. But we need to talk about that. But as a player, and I'm doing this because I want people to understand that, you know, there's certain things everybody looks at different accolades differently. What is which accolade, which event, which time of your collegiate career meant the most to you?
Oh my gosh, of my collegiate career? Oh wow. I honestly, wow. I'd have to say probably when we were at the University of Notre Dame, and we're playing, and it was we're walking off the field, and we're done. It's the last time I'm going to play Notre Dame, and it's my senior year, and I would have to say we're coming off, we're heading towards the bus, and the umpires called me over. And when you travel, a lot of times you see the same umpires all the time at all the same fields. And the umpires were like, hey, and I had gone over there, and they pulled flowers out of their car for me.
Wow.
And I was like looking at them kind of strange. And they're like, and my number in college was 22. And they're like, 22, we're going to miss you. And I was looking at them going, oh my gosh. And they're like, we're going to miss your smile, and we're going to miss your singing on the mound. And I went, oh, thank you. And the guy said, and until today, I thought you loved every call that ever made for you. But until today, and then I realized what, you know, because he'd asked me a question on the mound and he laughed when I told him the answer. But he goes, and I had no idea you were really cussing me out every time you turned around. And I was like, I'm not really cussing you out. And, you know, but he says, we're really going to miss you, not knowing that this is your senior year. But they had gotten me flowers. And I thought that was really sweet because I never had umpires do that as like a graduation. So I thought that was very sweet. And that meant a lot to me because that meant that, you know, I had made a difference, you know, as a pitcher. You know, my mom taught me when I was in high school, because I was a real butt when I was in high school, when I was younger, like, looking at umpires calls, you know, the facial expressions. And I was kind of a jerk every time I didn't get a call to go my way. And my mom told me I was embarrassing my family, and I was embarrassing to her. And I had one of those like coming to Jesus things with her when she was like, you need to stop, or I'm going to stop coming watch you play because of the way you're reacting. And you need to react differently, or you're not going to get calls to go your way. And so I would start smiling, and it wasn't the fake smile. Like I just smile at the umpires, and then I would turn around and I'd be like, roll my eyes to the center fielder. And I would, you know, do the old talking underneath my breath or whatever. And then I was always singing Jingle Bells on the Mound. Always. I mean, it was my song. It was my calming song. And then I turned back around and I'd be smiling. I smiled at everything. I tried to make eye contact with the batter on deck and just smile at him like, I'm going to strike you out, you know, or, and it wasn't the fake, you know, smile. I just smiled at it. I became known as a smiling pitcher. I smiled at everything. I smiled all the time. Every call, everything, I was smiling. And that's why they gave me the flowers. And my mom was a part of helping turn around my attitude. So, and that umpires recognized that from Notre Dame my senior year. And I thought that was really cool. That to me was a big moment for me. So not the wins, not the losses or any awards or anything like that, but I thought that was really cool.
That's an amazing story. I love such a great lesson that, you know, we strive for all of these trinkets, right? But it's the memories, it's how you impact others that really is what you remember in the end. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I stopped you because I wanted that question. Oh. I wanted that answer. So come back next week to A Coach's Handbook as we get into part 2 of Coach Jodi's interview, and we really dive into her long 30-year career. See you next week.
Yo. Why you wanna be an outcast? Numbers don't lie, you gain a lot from this math class. It takes time to be great, you can learn the lesson. Blood, sweat, and tears, heartbeat of a champion. Big or small, your heart is the biggest weapon. So follow before you lead and water and plant your seeds. When it's all said and done, you be the best they ever seen. So listen to my catalog on this coach's blog.